Hey, 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 ladies and elephants, it's a talking sock who doesn't typically open his videos by saying ladies and elephants. I don't know where that came from. I'm in a silly mood today. So I just got done watching, streaming rather, if you will, the Nintendo Direct of February 9th, 2022. My opinion on it? It was fine. It wasn't great. It didn't appeal to my tastes specifically, but it could have been worse. I'm gonna get into the announcements concerning Nintendo's own internal output. There's plenty of third-party stuff in there that's sorta interesting, maybe even sorta exciting, maybe even sorta not exciting at all, but let's just talk about Nintendo, okay? So it opened up with Fire Emblem footage, you know, knights riding on winged horses and all that. We've been thinking that maybe we're due for a remake of maybe the SNES Fire Emblem game. Some have been thinking that maybe it's time for a brand new entry in the series, but it was neither of those. It was Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Houses. I guess Koei Tecmo just really likes Fire Emblem and Zelda. They made a Musou game that was a big Zelda crossover. They made a Musou game that was a big Fire Emblem crossover. They made a sequel to the Zelda one that was focused specifically on Breath of the Wild. And now they're making a sequel to the Fire Emblem one that's focused specifically on 3 Houses. Okay. The next Nintendo announcement was a brand new Mario Strikers game. Cool! It's not my cup of tea, but I really love it stylistically. I think that it's probably the most unique of the Mario sports titles, at least in terms of aesthetics. And a lot of people have been eagerly anticipating the return of this series, so that's nice. I mean, it is more Mario multiplayer fodder, but you know, some people, it's not like it's a bad game, it's just not terribly exciting for me. I'll probably pick it up on sale sometime. This series is notable in the sense that Next Level Games originated it, and they were recently bought wholesale by Nintendo as a company. So considering they just got done doing Luigi's Mansion 3, which is quite possibly one of the most gorgeous and technically intricate Nintendo Switch games ever, there might be a small part of me that's a little disappointed to learn that they aren't doing a new revival of F-Zero or Star Fox or something, but, you know, give it time. As I always say, you don't judge things based on what they don't have, you judge based on what they do. The next Nintendo announcement was that of Splatoon 3's Salmon Run mode. They introduced some new bosses, and it looks like fun and all that. Still no specific release date. It's slated for summer of this year. So expect a big blowout at E3, probably. Kirby and the Forgotten Land got a new trailer that's coming out this March, and they showed off a lot of brand new things actually. The most notable one being that Kirby now has a mouthful mode, where he swallows something too big for his little body and stretches his entire body around it to make use of its special attributes. It's something else. I still don't know how I feel about it entirely. Now, the next announcement was a fairly big one, not in a series that I particularly care for, but one that there have been many fans vocally asking for a return in, and that is Wii Sports, or rather Nintendo Switch Sports. It actually looks like it's going to be a substantial sequel and not just a compilation, you know, of everything that's been in Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort before, as many people have asked for. It looks to be utilizing the Joy-Con to do things like play volleyball or use the leg strap in tandem with the Joy-Con to kick soccer balls. Very interesting. One major thing about this game that immediately stood out to me, and I'm sure everybody else, where are the Miis? What are these avatars that look like Mii knockoffs? Like, no, seriously, during that generation when Miis were new, pretty much every party game of a similar ilk under the sun, whether it be on the Wii or the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3 or whatever, they all had characters like this, that were not quite as endearing as the Miis for whatever reason. And it looks like Nintendo has made their own inferior Miis. You know, we found out later in the presentation, as Koizumi was playing volleyball, that you can put your Mii's faces on these avatars so they're not entirely gone, but why bother sidelining them at all? Maybe they don't want to do Mii's forever, maybe their next Nintendo console won't support Mii's. Or maybe they're just concerned that people who aren't too savvy with menu navigation won't be able to find the Mii Maker on the Nintendo Switch menu. You know, you could always update it to have the Mii Maker, you know, on one of those little bubble tabs along with the album and the eShop and everything. It's not too late to update that drab menu. You know, maybe give us folders and themes while you're at it. That'd be nice. Anywho, here's a really interesting thing that popped up in this Direct. Metroid Dread is getting a free update. It's getting a totally hardcore mode where one hit kills ya, and they're adding a more forgiving rookie mode, which is nice, you know, options are nice. I think this is a really big deal for the Metroid community. The game's done quick crowd, the speed running crowd. They love to revisit Metroid games with different stipulations and sequence breaking and all that. And yeah, this mode where, you know, if you get hit once you die, that'd be straight up impossible. I would never be able to do that. I died so many times on my way to finishing Metroid Dread, but there are some hobbyists out there who will absolutely jump at this new thing. And rookie mode, maybe that'll encourage more people to pick up the game if they think that it looks cool but were put off by the difficulty, I don't know. Up next, the Nintendo Switch Not expansion online, just the regular base plan, NES and SNES services, are getting Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound. Finally! You know, it seems like this should be a really big deal, but honestly, I don't know if it is. I mean, you know, I get if you didn't have a Wii U, then you couldn't play these games, and they weren't on the Wii eShop, so that's, you know, something. But then again, is it really that hard to download ZSNES and find the games somewhere else? I mean, obviously this is great for anybody who hasn't played these games and wants to, or just loves these games and loves to see any sort of support given to them. That's great. It is now official that the extent of Nintendo's acknowledgement of the Earthbound series' existence in the last 10 years is now all available on the Nintendo Switch. That is great. But it's still not much. It's no Mother 3 localization. It's no cartridge release for the preservationist crowd. It's no remaster or remake for those who want to see this universe in a different style or just with, you know, a new chance on store shelves. I don't know, it's not nothing, but it's something. Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound on NSO. Cool? Sweet, finally. Speaking of finally and updates, Mario Kart 8 DLC. About darn time, right? I think we felt pretty much since the release of this game all the way back in 2017 that DLC would be a really easy way to, you know, satiate the Mario Kart crowd while still staving off the next mainline entry for the next console. They will be adding 48 new tracks, each individually purchasable. Holy crud. That's a whole darn lot of tracks. No new karts or characters, but, you know, that's the most inconsequential part of Mario Kart games anyway, but the fandom is really hyperfixated on them for whatever reason. Anyway, you can purchase this DLC individually, or you can subscribe to the NSO expansion pass. That's a value proposition right there. I still don't think it's enough to justify the price, because again, even if it does cost more to buy all of this Mario Kart DLC individually, in that case you keep it forever. You don't have to pay in perpetuity for access to it. And even then, the attach rate of Mario Kart 8 on Wii U versus the amount of people who paid for the DLC isn't that great. How many casual Nintendo Switch players are going to fork up $50 a year for Mario Kart tracks? I can't imagine that many, but I guess we'll see. Either way, what does this mean for me, a fan of ARMS and F-Zero, who wishes that Nintendo would, you know, give some love to its other racing game franchise, and who hopes that the studio behind Mario Kart gets a chance to expand on a newly introduced IP that only I seem to like? Well, I don't know. It's a little bit funny. F-Zero, as I talked about after the presentation on stream for longer than I expected, it's just sort of the case that it could happen at literally any time. Who knows with Nintendo and reviving things. But with ARMS, again, I don't know, because these are tracks being remastered from previous games, including Tor, which isn't a previous game, it's a sequel if anything, but either way. So that would imply that it doesn't take as much development effort as a completely new game. So maybe they've been simultaneously working on something else, like ARMS or anything else. But again, it's hard to say. But I do think it's easy to assume, well, A, that F-Zero's not coming back, because that's just the default position of the F-Zero franchise at this point, But also B, assume that ARMS 2, if it's happening, isn't happening this year. Because I can't imagine Nintendo would hold that off for E3, or look to release it in the second half of the fiscal year, because while it did sell a great deal, 2.5 million units and counting is really darn good, not just for a new IP, but for any Nintendo game that isn't like Mario or Zelda or Pokemon, you know? So the possibility of a new ARMS game isn't totally out of the question, and it isn't like, you know, completely gone. You gotta wait 5 more years at least because they just released a new Mario Kart level, because this is, you know, it's not a new Mario Kart, it's just a great big expansion to an existing Mario Kart. It's a who knows on that front, and I probably shouldn't have spewed it all out here and just made a separate video on it. Maybe I will someday, I don't know. Let's just move on to the last announcement already. The last announcement in this Nintendo Direct from Nintendo was a teaser trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I suppose it is about that time, yeah? I'm not much of a fan of the Xenoblade series, but, you know, plenty of people are. Not as many people as, you know, people who've bought ARMS, but a lot of people. So that's good and cool and dandy, and does make this year's lineup of releases look more and more similar to 2017. So there's something, I guess. All in all, I did not get bingo. I could have if my icons were placed just a little bit differently, but whatever. And as for my feelings on the presentation on the whole, as I said, it was fine. If I were to grade it, I'd give it like a C or a C+, maybe. Cause Kirby and the Forgotten Land looks great, I'm really looking forward to it. Mario Strikers is kinda cool, Wii Sports, or Nintendo Sports, I suppose. Nintendo Switch Sports, darn it! Looks alright. Advance Wars, definitely looking forward to that too. There was nothing new in this Direct that appealed to me. Which was, you know, kinda the same thing with last February's Direct, but if we gotta look at the silver lining here, last year's E3 blew my expectations out of the water, you know, after that February Direct was not that great. So, fingers crossed that this year's E3 does the same. So I suppose that's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more content like this when relevant news like this happens, but also scripted stuff. I recently did a review of Smiling Friends on Adult Swim. You know, it's not Nintendo related, but I liked it, and it's got more traction than most of my videos do, so that's something. I am also currently working on a review of something that should appeal to both fans of Smiling Friends and Nintendo gamers, so be on the lookout for that. Anywho, thanks again for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you really want to go the extra mile in supporting my creative endeavors, I do have a Patreon page, which you can support for as little as $1 a month. Thank you very much to those who have chosen to support me in that way. I can't thank you enough. I will see you the next time I see you. Adios, ladies and elephants.